Welcome inside the Glory Road podcast. Billy Beebe back with you for another shorter version of the Glory Road podcast. Tonight's topic of discussion is going to be Andre Drummond. He has places to go, and it is time for him to exit Cleveland. Nothing we didn't all see coming, but Drummond finally probably going to have to hit the road for the Cavs. Maybe not now, but it's going to be a month or two when that trade deadline hits, and it's in, I believe, early March this year. I'd have to look up the exact date, but the NBA trade deadline is pushed back. So Andre Drummond will likely be on the move unless the Cavaliers really feel like they're going to make a push for, I don't know, a 4 or 5 seed. I don't see that happening. It's probably going to be them at an 8 seed and willing to dish Drummond, especially with all the wheeling and dealing Kobe Altman's done. Let's get to our guest, the man with me today, a good friend, my guy from the Rocket Men series we did on Chris Paul, Carmelo Anthony, and Dwight Howard. Matthew Beck is back with me. Matthew, thanks for coming on, brother.
Dude, thanks for having me, man. Always love to do these pods.
Absolutely. And, we love posting on YouTube. Make sure you check out on Spotify. Comment, subscribe. Go back and take a look at some other videos. I got to admit, Matthew, my Russell Westbrook still a top 15 player is looking rough right now.
I haven't disagreed with you on that. We never had that discussion, but you know that I've thought a little bit less of him than you have.
I'm still a big fan. I like his work ethic and his past accolades, but we'll move on from that. The Cavaliers' big man Andre Drummond. Matthew, what a situation we have on our hands. Playing so great for the Cavaliers, and yet it's like a cloud over everyone's head. Like, hey, this can't go on much longer. The Cavaliers have to dish this guy in what has been truly an incredible year for the big man. Currently for the Cavaliers this year, averaging 18 and about 15, and really has helped make a culture change for the Cavaliers. However, I think it's still evident he's probably going to be on the move.
Yeah, no. I wish we could keep him. Honestly, I think he's a great piece just for a lot of teams, especially for our team. But I understand why we have to let him go. It just kind of makes sense financially. It makes sense to just try to keep building around Sexton and what we have there and Jared Allen, and it makes sense. It just hurts a little bit because I know I try not to talk about it too much because it's sports, but we love 2K and Drummond gets those wins in 2K, so he's got a special place in my heart. But it makes sense why we have to let him go. So I get it.
Yeah, definitely note that Drummond, you add him to your 2K team, you're guaranteed 50 wins.
You're guaranteed a playoff spot.
Playoffs. It's not like he's going to get 30 and whatever, but whatever. Matthew, let's go over the two things, okay? Number one, what has Drummond done for Cleveland? And number two, why does he have value right now at the trade deadline? We'll jump into this. For about a year now, he's made the Cavs 500. I mean, It's not directly correlated to him, but the Cavaliers are literally 500 under him and J.B. Bickerstaff. And I'd like to attribute to that of he's a solid all-around player, a rebounder, a scorer, and a defender, right? He's doing those three things. And for guys like Colin Sexton, for Darius Garland last year, at times Larry Nance, they haven't played with a solid break them down, play every night, play hard every night, get your numbers every night, benefit each and every single night. Finally, they're playing with a stable player. That roster was looking rough for a while. I mean, Ante Zizic was starting games. Tristan Thompson couldn't make it in. Kevin Love couldn't make it in. They weren't breaking in. They weren't playing anymore. Cavaliers had to dish guys like Clarkson and Rodney Hood. The decent players had to exit. Drummond stabilizes that defense and plays offense in a way that at times is extremely intimidating for a guy like – I mean, even like a Ivica Zubac or like guys like that like get completely broken down by Drummond. I know the Cavaliers had a huge win against Philly when Embiid was out, and he just took to him. It was like Tony Bradley and Dwight Howard and Embiid. He never rested. So, I mean, what a change he's made for the Cavaliers, Matthew.
Yeah, he's a dog. I don't know if I've ever said this to you, but I've said it to some of my friends that I talk sports with. I feel like if the dude had a mid-range and maybe a little bit of a three, he'd be like Anthony Davis level. I mean, I think he's an absolute animal. He just doesn't have that shot that I think a lot of teams are looking for. But in terms of what he's done for the Cavs, I mean, you pretty much laid it all out right there. The dude just plays hard. I like to use a smash mouth basketball. He's going to get you boards. He's going to play defense. He's going to be that rock that your team needs. And I think that's kind of what he's been doing for the Cavs. Like I said, you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. He's just been a real good centerpiece for the Cavs the past season or so.
Yeah, so Drummond Cavaliers acquire him for Brandon Knight and John Henson, who are neither of them are on the Pistons. Incredible.
It worked out pretty well for us so far. And especially, it'll work out better because theoretically, if we get a good trade off for him, then you could say we traded Brandon Knight and John Henson for whoever, and we're going to
Right.
discuss that. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, hopefully I'll get to do a Kobe Altman pod soon because I mean it's absurd right now. They're at the point where it's like Clarkson for Exum for Jared Allen. Like that's the kind of trades this guy is up with, and it really is great. But let's jump to something different, Matthew. Why is Drummond out of Cleveland, and what's his value on the trade market now? As far as out of Cleveland, facts are facts. Kobe Altman traded for him to get wins, to save his job, to show that he knows what he's doing, to get his younger players better. Which, hey, Andre Drummond's done all those things. Absolutely, he's earned it. However, the relationship is give and take, okay? As much as Andre Drummond has helped the Cavaliers, Andre Drummond has taken the Cavaliers for granted. There's been nights, I would use the Lakers game the other night. He played terrific in the first half, and then in the second half when it was his time to give up the ball and let the guards handle the offense and take late game shots and make late game plays, no, he wanted to take on Anthony Davis. He wanted to use post moves he's been using since 2012 that he hasn't tried to develop, and he gets blocked, and he's hogging the ball late in games. I mean, it's really to the point where it's like you've gotten what you want about it. The Cavs are stabilized. Drummond's got his contract year, and now the Cavs can trade him, and he can go to a contender, and he'll make bank in the offseason. That's where the separation is for me. I don't want him anymore taken away from younger players. I think he does it on a nightly basis at times, and I don't want to say he's ever lost the Cavaliers a game, but there's been times where he's really, really taken them out of it. Just because of ball handling, ball hawking. He really thinks he's Magic Johnson at times, which bothers me.
I was going to say, I think if he's having a good night in the post and he had that shot, I think he'd be Anthony Davis level. But I think he sometimes does struggle in the post. Like if you can hand Anthony Davis the ball, and there's about nobody in the league, maybe Embiid, and some other players on a good night that could slow Anthony Davis down. Obviously, Drummond is a little bit less talented offensively than Davis, but I completely agree with what you're saying there. That I think that sometimes sometimes I feel like he watched like a YouTube guide on like how to be Shaq, and he really wants to be Shaq, and then like it just doesn't work out, and then Colin Sexton's sitting there like, hey man, I'm open, I'm ready for it, and then he just never gets it. And I get what you're saying there. I think that's kind of adds to the reason, other than just financially and in terms of building up, in terms of our development. I think that part of the reason is too why we're looking to get rid of Drummond, just because he's kind of taken away from some of the other players, especially Jared Allen, who I think the Cavs are really going to try to have him be a centerpiece coming forward here. So
definitely, I want to add that in there. Good point, Matthew. If the Cavaliers didn't trade for Jared Allen, I'd have the script flipped.
Yeah, 100%.
I want to give Drummond a contract, probably.
Yeah, and then try to see how they could work out the offense that the guards are getting involved a little bit more. But yeah, I agree completely. I think we've both kind of made it clear we really like Drummond as a player, as just a teammate. I think for the most part he's pretty solid to have on your roster, but obviously it just doesn't make sense because he is kind of drawing away from Sexton and Garland and Okoro a little bit. So yeah, we'll see what they do.
And that brings us to where we're at trade-wise. He's at $28 million currently with the Cavaliers on his player option. So Drummond will be a free agent coming up. Again, $28 million is a lot for a center. Now, value-wise, I know we talked Cleveland, but to the league, Matthew, things are changing a little bit. We were in a big man's league. Then we switched with the Warriors and kind of the rest of the league. Things went small again. I honestly think we flipped back a little bit. I think there's a lot of value in the big man now. The classic, maybe not Patrick Ewing-esque,
Yeah.
but that teams are going to wonder who's guarding Joel Embiid when we get to the second round. Who can really give Giannis trouble in that playoff matchup, especially for Drummond. But on the other side, it's like you have to handle Davis. You have to handle other big guys in the West, Nurkic. Some other bigger guys. Even Dallas has Porzingis, and they have other big guys. And again, we talked about Drummond's doing everything. The shooting, no, it's not there, but he's doing everything to the point that it's such a stabilizer, including defense, which if you go back and listen to my Cavaliers preseason pod, I really didn't think he was going to bring that much heaviness on defense. He was talking about defense player of the year. Now he's not there, but he's played very well defensively for the Cavaliers, done a lot of really good things that other teams value. Again, like I talked about Davis, Nurkic, Jokic, all these players in the West that teams are kind of antsy about, hey, how are we going to deal with this guy, Embiid, other really big and good players, Adebayo. I mean, the list could go on and on. The big man's back. And I know some of those guys have a shot, no doubt, but, they're also going to get pressure to play in the post later in the playoffs. So Drummond has value on the market. $28 million, a lot of money, no doubt. It's not unreachable for a couple teams. They'll figure it out. There's trade exceptions. There's young players. There's the Cavs or that team taking the hit or the Cavs taking the hit, whichever, I think at this point. But, Matthew, let's jump into the teams that we're interested in seeing Andre Drummond go to. I broke down kind of some teams to watch when the playoffs comes that Drummond will have to deal with. Let's jump to the first team I think the Cavaliers could get a deal done with. The Dallas Mavericks, Luka Doncic's team, as that's exactly what they are. Now, Matthew, I bring them up first because I honestly believe, and we talked about it a little bit before we did the pod, this is the best money team to just straight up get it done. No trade exceptions, no third teams, no problems, no $100,000 so close deal. Dallas has contracts that they've acquired that they traded for, and now it's time to rearrange those. First off, why do you like Andre Drummond in Dallas?
I like him in Dallas for a few reasons. I have some notes here on my computer. I don't know if you knew this or not. Dallas is actually 24th in total rebounds. So, I mean, I think if you get Drummond, I think it's pretty obvious he's going to add to that a little bit at least.
Right.
And they really don't have that cornerstone. Like, sorry, Kristaps is not going to stop. Insert any center in the West. He's not going to stop them on defense. So right. I think having Drummond there would help them. And obviously Dallas Mavericks are currently probably mid-round, mid-level playoff team. I would like to think that they maybe get that 5th or 6th seed eventually. I know they kind of had a rough start to the year, but I think if you get Drummond, they probably solidify the 5th spot. If I had to guess, maybe the 6th, 5th or 6th around there. And they're just going to have a defensive anchor. And the nice thing too about Drummond is that if you get him this year, he either plays well and you look to re-sign him possibly, or he doesn't and he walks, and you really don't lose that much other than who you traded to the Cavs theoretically. So
right, yeah, all great points. You like his value on the rebounding side of things. Defensively, again, we talked about the guys that Dallas is going to have to go up against. First off, they're currently 10th and 8 and 9, so they're going to have to turn things around quick. They really need it. So you could see them going against Warriors. They have Wiseman. The Suns, they have Ayton. Grizzlies have Valanciunas. Blazers have Nurkic. Nuggets have Jokic. Clippers have Zubats, who he kind of handles well. But then Jazz have Gobert. And then the Lakers have Gasol or Anthony Davis. I mean, you're really going to need your own heavy hitter there. And, yes, they have Porzingis. We talked about that. Let's jump to that, though, Matthew. Porzingis been hurt. He's been out of it. He has just not been what they hoped. He's not been what they hoped the Knicks would be. The Knicks Kristaps Porzingis a couple years ago, as he's still averaging a solid year this year. Currently at about 19 and 8 for the Mavericks, but it's really clear he's hurt. Number one, not to a serious point where it's like, oh man, get this guy out of the league, but definitely not what they traded for. Future first rounders, taking on the Hardaway contract, a lot of things Dallas, I bet, is regretting right now for that deal. So Matthew, my first trade proposal, and we're not gonna break it down exactly like this. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3.
Yeah,
we're just kind of shooting what could get done here. Drummond for Kristaps.
Yeah, possibly. I think for me at least, Kristaps has kind of moved to. So when Mavericks first got him, I kind of viewed him as he's your second option. That's what I kind of thought. Yeah. And for me, he's kind of moved into that like Kevin Love-esque, where I think he's going to be best with 2 other ball handlers. And, he could sit there in the corner and say, here, LeBron, here, Kyrie, pass it to me. And, just saying, like when Kevin Love was on the Cavs and he kind of was that option. I think he's kind of moved into that territory for me. So financially, I know that the trade works with Kristaps. I believe they might have to add one more player. Would the Cavs do that? I think it's possible, because I think the only thing would be Kevin Love, but they might be looking for another power forward behind Kevin Love possibly. My deal that I had was James Johnson and Josh Richardson for Drummond. I think that one's a little bit realistic as well, just because the Cavs do like their shooting guards behind Sexton, and I think that Dallas might be looking to lose James Johnson, possibly because he is on a $16 million contract. It is only a one-year deal, but, we'll see. There's plenty of discussion because there is a lot of options with the Dallas Mavericks Cavs trade potential. So,
yeah, Johnson sitting at 16 million and Richardson at 10. 2 years left for Josh Richardson, so that would benefit the Cavaliers greatly. Yeah, the last one I want to throw out for that, Matthew, I would personally want to do Dwight Powell, Josh Johnson, and Tyrell Terry for Drummond, because the Cavaliers need a backup point guard and they need a backup center if they get rid of Drummond. So I like Powell in that position, and then I like Tyrell Terry. I don't think they'll give up Tyrell Terry. They just took him. They like him a lot. But again, I mean, there's a lot of great contracts for the Cavaliers to get a deal done here. Let's move to number 2, Matthew. The Portland Trailblazers, the Cavaliers.
I actually have them as well. That's good.
Yeah. So Portland, a very interesting situation for them right now. They're not winning again, and that is truly that's tough, because we know and like the pieces that they have. We know and like the run they made last year, and they're still sitting at 9-7, which that's winning, but it's definitely not what we expected out of them coming out of the bubble, and some really great plays and a good run for them after. Let's break down the roster. As far as fit goes, they're terrible on defense. They have problems. They don't rebound, and they struggle with big men. They're, I believe, 28th in defense in the NBA, so out of 30. That really looks rough.
Yeah, they are 28th, you said, and then they're also 19th in rebounding. So I was kind of thinking about this. I think this deal is honestly pretty realistic. That can be discussed between me and you, but I had Nurkic and Covington for Drummond straight up. I think the Cavs would love to get another defensive player, kind of hard-nosed player like Covington, and then obviously have Nurkic run either alongside or behind Jared Allen, depending on the night, I'm sure. And I think that trade's pretty realistic. We get kind of a couple nice pieces, and they get Drummond, who, I mean, that could almost be like Lob City with McCollum and Lillard handing it over to Drummond. But just open to hear your thoughts about who you think they could possibly get. I know we'd love to have Melo in a Cavs jersey, but I don't think that'll happen.
Another 2K legend. Matthew, let's do a virtual fist bump here, because I said the same thing. I love the idea of Nurkic and then Covington. Or
really?
Possibly Derek Jones Jr. and one other guy. I think those things work. Jones Jr. needs more time because it's a new contract.
Yep.
Which we all know it used to be December 15th, but I'm not sure what exactly the date for new guys to be traded is. So let's break it down. The Blazers would never trade Covington. I think that's a lot of things people say, and why trade probably your best wing defender, stretch power forward, really good player with 2 years left on a good contract. It's not working. They tried. They're desperate. He hasn't helped their defense enough. He hasn't. That's just where they're at with Covington. Now, adding Nurkic to this situation, that's a fan favorite. I completely understand. That's a guy they've been through a lot. Guys, he's not the same player.
Yeah, after that injury.
For NBA fans, he's not. And, Matthew, I think it's notable, he's just missed big moments. That big run to the Western Conference Finals, they're bringing Enes Kanter in again with a broken shoulder to go out there and play because Nurkic is hurt. Last year in the bubble, he's recovering from an injury because he's not looking good and he's slow and he looks terrible in the bubble. That's 2 years in a row. Now, what's he going to do for you this third year? He looks the same, slow and injured. 2 years, $12 million each year. I can live with that. I can live with him as a backup center. I like the idea of the Cavaliers pressuring them to do this. Now, there could be some nitty-gritty in trades like these for the Cavaliers. I want to mention that, okay?
Yeah, I haven't looked at picks, just to say. I have not looked at second-rounders, first-rounders, anything like that, so that could change it. I've just been strictly looking at money and basketball logic. So
I would say at this point in time, the Cavaliers are clean on picks, right? They have their picks. That's it. They're done with Milwaukee. They had those, and they used them for Allen, and they used them for some other swing trades, Porter Jr., which and then they're stocked full of second-rounders, and second-rounders run the world. in the NBA. I think Portland's desperate to try and get some picks back. No, I don't think the Cavaliers should go and get rid of their first rounder. They're not at that point. They don't need to be. However, names are going to get put out there a little bit that fans might be upset about, okay? That might need to swing the deal. Matthew, one is Jetty Osman, especially if you're going to get Covington back in the deal or somebody else small, like if they throw Nas Little at you or something like that, because you really like what some guys have done for the Cavaliers. And Dylan Windler is the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So those are two guys I like. I wasn't a big Jetty fan, but he's played perfectly off the bench, really, really good. And then I love Windler, but, unproven enough that this is the kind of trade that swings it. Or even if the Cavaliers get the chance, I'd rather have Covington than Taurean Prince. Yep. So if they really have to make the world go round here, names like that are going to get dished. It's tough. I'm sure Brooklyn didn't want to trade Jared Allen.
Yeah.
But the deals, these are major deals that are getting done. I love Covington, and I like Nurkic as a backup. I think Portland is a really, really good fit. And now that we look at Matthew, the money might not be as tough as we thought. Matthew, let's jump to our next team.
What do you
Los
got?
Angeles Clippers is who I have next. If I miss somebody, we're going to go over Matthew's one or two here at the end that I might have missed. But I think we've agreed okay so far. The Clippers are definitely an interesting team, Matthew, just because they're probably the type of team that could just walk away from anything because they could just say, hey, we have our guys. We don't need to get a deal done that desperately. You know what I mean? And that's where they're at the point. A couple interesting contracts for them. Luke Kennard makes $5 million. Ivica Zubac's $7 million. Lou Williams is $8 million. And then Pat Bev is 13. So it would really revolve around those guys.
Yeah. Yep.
And Marcus Morris is freshly signed. So, again, you need to wait for that deadline to go with him. But he would definitely be part of it, Marcus Morris.
If they could sneak him in there, I think you'd have to be almost. I don't think there's really any other way a deal would get done. I was thinking something like Morris and Bev. Once Morris gets cleared and he's tradable, Morris and Bev for Drummond might work just because the Cavs would like a backup point guard and Morris would kind of take up another wing spot. I was also I would love to get Ibaka, but I think he's pretty freshly signed, right? I don't even think they'd have time
he's
for
not
that.
1 year, so same thing. You have to wait till the contract's clear. The reason Drummond for these guys also bad on defense. Surprising. They have Leonard, they have George. Marcus Morris is no slouch on defense. We know Pat Bev is a defensive player, and I've always liked Kennard's hustle, but still they're not producing on defense. There is pressure. Believe me, is there pressure?
And they're 27th in rebounding as well. I just checked, so they're on the bottom end of the rebounding spectrum as well. So
this is why we bring Matthew on. I love it. I always struggle because stats bore me so much that
I'm a finance major, so I like to see the numbers.
I love it. We need it more. That's the Glory Road podcast for you.
We can do when you start getting bigger and bigger, you can just call me in, be like, hey, what's the stats on this? I'll look them up. I'll be the NBA referee in New York.
Yeah, I'll phone that we'll go quick on that one, Matthew. We know the names. The disparity is not necessarily there. So, I mean, LA, they could just say, we're fine. We don't care much. Not a big deal. Hit me with the team you're interested in talking about.
So, I was actually just going to ask if I could do that. Now, hear me out. I'm not big on interdivision trades because I just know it's kind of like if the trade works out, it's just going to be weird. But I think a team that Drummond would really fit good on, and just hear me out, the Pacers. The Pacers, wow. They're a mid-level team right now. I think they're the 4 seed if I remember correctly, and they actually have some money to play with. And again, call me crazy. I'm just looking at the numbers. I told you before this podcast, and I'll tell the people watching this that I literally just started looking at all these trades that could potentially happen and try to figure out which ones kind of made sense and which ones might be a little bit more out on the wacky spectrum. But I was thinking this possibly. Karis LeVert and McDermott for Drummond, and we would probably have to throw in a pick because they like Karis LeVert. But I know that he just got, I believe, is he out for the rest of the year? They said indefinitely, I saw.
McDermott?
No, LeVert.
I think he'll be back in time.
Okay, but still, I know he's a really good young piece and they like him, but tell me what you think about it. I mean, the trade works financially. They get a piece that they need. I know Miles Turner hasn't been really exceptional for them, but if they paired Drummond with Sabonis, I think they'd be a pretty pretty nasty front court. Tell me what you think about it.
Yeah, same situation. I think they'd love to try and boost themselves. They've been stuck in the same wish-wash for a couple years. Personally, my opinion, can't speak from any source or whatever. LeVert's off the table. They just got him. They traded him for Oladipo, and he's got 3 years left at 16 mil. They're not giving that up. That's in my opinion, no way. 28 games basically. Now, a trade I would like to see, straight up Turner and TJ Warren to the Cavaliers.
That would be good as well. Like I said, I was just kind of spitballing here. I knew LeVert would be highly priced. I kind of figured, because I know you really like LeVert. You were saying LeVert was better than I think you were saying, was it Kyrie? You were saying he was better than somebody a while ago.
Well, I said on that Nets team that was really good that one year, he was better than D'Lo. He was more valuable.
That's who it was. Yeah.
Right, and he was.
Yeah. But like I said, I was just throwing him out there. But that trade that you just said would probably be perfect. Honestly, I think that the Pacers probably get better off of it, and I think we get better off of it. And like I said, again, I think we're kind of both agreeing. We're just kind of doing the core of the trades. There might be some picks here or there, and maybe a smaller, $1 to $3 million salary cap player that might get tossed in there as well. But that trade you said, that would be stellar. And like I said, the only problem would be that it would be interdivision, which I know is not too common, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as big a deal in the NBA just because you play so many games. Obviously, football, that's a huge deal. Again, please keep in mind, when we talk about these trades, it's Drummond and something else most likely, right? So we mentioned Windler, Jetty, second rounders, a way down the line first rounder, hopefully. Yeah. Again, to wrap up with the Pacers, Matthew, Turner and Warren is my idea because they're just done with the Turner experiment. He's got a 3-year, $18 million a year deal going, which I like. I'm okay with that. Yeah. And then Warren's got 2 years left with almost $13 million.
And he's a scorer.
Beautiful. Yeah. That's high scoring. Cavaliers are struggling a little bit to score points. They are. Actually, hit me with one more.
One more? I do have one more for you. I was kind of I was thinking about here that you might actually get around to the Kings. So I was thinking Corey Joseph, Bagley, and Bielitsa for JaVale McGee and Drummond. The money works here on this one. They could do some centers. I mean, they're hurting there. I know they are, I believe, let me double check real quick. They are 28th in rebounds per game. So they are hurting there. They're one of those teams that they're really kind of been in that loop we were talking about for a long time. Like, I don't know if the De'Aaron Fox experiments working here. We know Bagley hasn't really been what they want for him. Maybe a culture change, bringing him to Cleveland could do something, just kind of thinking along those lines. Sounds like you might have had him in your list as well, so tell me what you think.
I love being reminded of things I didn't think of. I love it. I think that's so great. That's such a great trade. They're done with Bagley. They're kind of done with Bielitsa. Like you said, they're struggling here and there. They don't have huge money locked up in their centers. They're really paying Buddy and Harrison Barnes. Cavs might even be pressured to take one of those guys instead. Maybe you'd have to live with having Buddy Hield or Harrison Barnes for 3 or 4 years to get a guy like Marvin Bagley, who I love Marvin Bagley. I think he just
I like him as well
to get out of there. I like that idea, Matthew. That might be, of all the trades we've gone through, that might be my most beloved. I love that. That's such a great idea. Expand more on just, I mean, you talked a little bit about what they could get, but the work for both sides, specifically the Cavaliers, because, I mean, in my opinion, I'll shoot it back to you in a sec, but Love's out in one way or another soon, especially when you can buy him out for less guaranteed money or move him for less guaranteed money or with a pick if you know you're pretty good. Bagley would look great there. And then Bagley could play the 5. They haven't really embraced him at the 5. There's no reason to think he wouldn't. Man, that's so good. That's so good for the Cavaliers. And they really would feel like they could invest in Bagley. They like Bielitsa. Now that's tough getting 2 power forwards, I think. But man, what a great idea! Even to just clean swap and give Hield and Bagley for Andre Drummond.
Yeah. So I think Drummond would probably be pissed because at least in the Cavs, he's like having fun. I don't know if he'd have fun in Sacramento. Yeah. He might enjoy the weather, but
again, add this, Matthew, before you go. They'd pay him.
Yeah, that's true. They would pay him.
Hield or Harrison Barnes off there.
And who knows? He could make De'Aaron Fox a better player. That could be a little tandem there potentially. Just
Right.
But I think we get Bielitsa, who 1-year deal, so he either shoots threes well and we keep him, or he doesn't and he's gone. Corey Joseph, who I have always been fond of as a bench point guard, shooting guard, whatever you want to call him. I know he's kind of taken a step back since he left the Raptors, but
be a great backup.
Yeah, and obviously we're both pretty high on Bagley. I think in the right situation, Bagley could be a really good player. I don't think he is your best power forward or center. I think he's past that. But as a secondary option that can dunk the ball, get some boards, he's got a little bit of a shot, if I'm not mistaken. I would love to do the Bagley experiment for a couple years. And here's the thing: you're paying him $9 million. Again, he's one of those players. He's either going to work out or he's not. Anything is better than just losing Drummond and letting him walk. So.
Absolutely, I agree. Terrific stuff. Really good stuff. I think we've laid out a ton that the Cavaliers can do. I'd say there's probably a 75% chance Drummond gets traded. That 25 obviously is the performance thus far, but expiring, Kobe Altman isn't into just letting guys walk like that. Tristan's really the only guy, and they really felt like Tristan had fallen off and his time had kind of been done with the Cavaliers. I'd be more than shocked if the Cavs paid Andre Drummond, which is the true reason he might want traded to establish himself with a team that might pay him. Matthew, thank you for hopping on. You were so good with numbers, with the stuff I struggle with a little bit. I think we mix well with some knowledge I have, some knowledge you have. Go ahead and plug your channel. I know you're moving around on YouTube too.
Yeah, so for those who are interested, my channel name is Beckev. It's Beckev. I make League of Legends guides and I stream League of Legends. It's a video game for those of you who know it. I have Twitch, YouTube, and I'm actually getting into Facebook gaming. I just love sports, so that's why funny story, I was actually at my girlfriend's house today when Billy texted me, and I said, hey, I got to go. I'm doing a podcast at 8. So I love doing pods. I love sports. I said earlier I'm a finance major, so I love the numbers. So I just love having a good time here on the Glory Road podcast.
Love it. Hey, guys, subscribe on YouTube. Take a look on Spotify and go back and check out some past videos. We'll have new content coming out. But for now, I'm signing off. Matthew signing off. And good luck to Andre Drummond.